on what the Modi government has done with Lockdown 2.0, the fresh guidelines that allow essentially certain sectors to function from April 20th. The relief is primarily aimed at the agriculture sector and small industry, taking forward, some say, the Prime Minister's message of saving lives and livelihoods. But is it enough? Will the easing of these guidelines actually ensure a recovery of economic activity? It's our top story tonight.
The fresh Home Ministry guidelines, which will govern us all during the second phase of lockdown, are out. And there are critical provisions which may provide a breather from April 20th to areas where the virus is not raging. There's relief for consumers, industry, fisheries and agriculture sectors. You may soon be able to buy non-essential items, send and receive couriers as e-commerce sites and delivery will be opened up. Sending letters will also be possible since post offices will remain open. So will be IT-enabled services which will have 50% staff. Call centers of government agencies will also open. There will be a boost to economy since road construction will be restarted, so will the agri sector and horticulture activities. Rural industries are also set to open. The fishing industry and rural jobs scheme Manrega will also resume. The industry players have welcomed the new guidelines.
We hope that in the next phase, some more important labor-intensive sectors would come up. This is a great step which will facilitate both economy as well as livelihood, as well as, of course, lives.
It actually calibrates the opening going forward and gives those industries and those commercial establishments that need to open up on the 20th enough time to plan opening with the standard operating procedures in place.
Others demanded a second stimulus package to renew the economic activities.
We have already asked the government to support in a financial package. We have written and we have spoken to all levels of government. I think it's time for the government to now give the second package, which is the industrial package.
But the bar on travel will still be strictly implemented. There will be no flights, no trains, no metros, no taxis. Schools, colleges, hotels, theatres, malls and religious places will also remain shut. No gathering for any purposes will be allowed. Sale of liquor, gutka and tobacco remains suspended.
Centre's fresh guidelines on lockdown has come as a huge sigh of relief for those associated with industry and agriculture sectors, the two backbone of Indian economy. The relaxation will actually kickstart an economy which has otherwise come to a grinding halt. There is going to be a further test whether India is able to flatten the COVID-19 curve. And if there is a further relaxation, then perhaps further good news could be in the offing. With camera person Anil Jaiswal, this is Kamaljeet Sandhu in Delhi for India Today.
Let's raise the big questions then. Will a conditional lockdown work? Lockdown 2.0. Will the government have to open up more sectors? Will they do so later? Are the relaxations much fewer than expected? Can the new norms save livelihoods? Those are some of the questions I want to pose to Rajiv Kumar, Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog. I appreciate your joining us, Rajiv Kumar. Take that question. Do you believe that the easing of these in some sectors is enough? Has the government only tinkered at the moment, not being willing to fully take any risks? As a result, you're in a way in a situation where you neither have fully opened nor have you fully closed. You're caught between two extremes.
Well, Rajdeep, I'm sure that you recognize also that being at any extreme is not the best position to be in. And therefore, the middle path is always the better path. And I don't think I think the choice of words are a little bit, misplaced about tinkering and so on. I think your own reporter used a much better term, which is calibrated. Mm-hmm. And you have to strike a balance between lives and livelihood, which are both important. And in striking that balance, you have to take one step at a time, because you can't possibly, you can't go on, you can't be at one extreme or the other.
Sure.
Because both those extremes can be very expensive in terms of human lives, and therefore any conscious, any sensitive policymaker will not like to take those steps. So what you see in these announcements today is a very well-calibrated move to permit economic activity where it's most needed, and at the same time where it will be the least risky and dangerous for the spread of this vicious, pernicious virus that we have to keep at bay.
I take your word calibrated. Let me take your own word as you used, or our reporter used, calibrated response. But a calibrated response, doesn't it also need, for example, a practical response? Let's take, for example, public transport, Mr. Kumar. Without public transport, a number of these activities may not be able to function as effectively as they could. They'll probably function 25%, 30% at best. Is that something you believe is a situation we simply have to live with, because lives matter more than livelihoods?
I mean, both matter, Rajdeep, and the government has been quite clear that both matter. But yes, you see, the public transport, the notification does include that all transport required for those serving in these industries will be permitted. And for that, a very well-functioning e-pass system has now been introduced. The notification itself says that, for example, all e-commerce delivery people, all people building inventory or working, etc., on other projects, they will be allowed to move from one place to the other. What is not permitted is a general opening up of the public transport, which will lead to congestion. So therefore, metros and public buses and and local trains, etc., I'm afraid we will have to live without those, because in any case, all of these are being used for mass manufacturing, items, etc., which are yet not open. For the offices too, for the workplaces, there is a calibrated opening there. We've all been asked to work with skeletal staff, but please notice that the notification today on more than one occasion says that industries outside the municipal limits are being permitted at this time. Rural industries are being opened up, brick kilns are being opened up, and rural roads and agriculture, etc., where transport is being allowed. In fact, the specific notification there is that for movement of agricultural equipment and machinery is being permitted. So all is being done to facilitate the movement of people required for the manufacture or the production of the items that have been opened up.
Sure, but as you said, Mr. Kumar, one of the key areas is the opening up outside city limits, opening up industry, small industry outside city limits, allowing agriculture to take place. But all of these there are sharp, strong rural-urban linkages. So when a Mumbai, for example, remains a hotspot, when a Delhi remains a hotspot, when parts of other cities of this country, the big cities of the country remain a hotspot, where is that market demand? Where are the supply linkages to be built? Does that remain the major concern, even as this lockdown suggests some easing of relaxations and restrictions?
That, of course, remains a major concern, Rajdeep, because this is one of those very rare shocks to the economy where both the supply and the demand side is being hit simultaneously. We don't get these very often. I don't recall in my 35, 40 years of experience as an economist another shock of this nature. So both of them have to be handled. But at the same time, as you said, the important thing is to make sure that we don't lose the battle on the spread of the virus. Because if we lose that, then we would have lost everything. So these supply linkages are being created to begin with essential commodities. Their definition is being broadened to go beyond food and drugs and pharmaceuticals to include the FMCG products. As you notice, fisheries and animal husbandry and chicken and milk and all of that are being created. Now, for example, the transport of milk, the supply of milk by the farmers to the dairies and the dairy supplies to the urban centers are being permitted. So is the movement of oil, and petroleum products. So there is an opening here in areas where the entire vertical of one area is being permitted to operate. But the opening itself is limited and not across the board.
You know, for example, you mentioned just now fisheries. At the end of the day, or dairying, in the end, it needs the end consumer. The worry is, unless the end consumer becomes part of this activity, the end consumer is closeted at home. The end consumer is not being allowed to move out of his house. He or she is being told, you're still part of the lockdown. In fact, you're going to have to prove over the next week till the 20th that you're adhering to the lockdown. Only then the concession will be made. Is that the real fear, that while tentative steps are made, or while this calibrated response is done, there is still the fear that any further opening up could result in another COVID outbreak? So is that fine balance which is being sought to be achieved?
Absolutely right, and and you put it very well. We cannot afford a massive outbreak and spread of this virus. We can't afford a sort of a rapid outbreak out here. So that all those restrictions have therefore been put in place. But for example, we export a lot of fisheries products in India. Now that's permitted. You've seen that all the activities in the special economic zones and the export-oriented units are being permitted. So therefore, just as an example, a lot of shrimp culture, along our coasts are used for exports of shrimps. Now that's going to be permitted, and that's one important economic activity which will be started. What you and I cannot afford at this point of time is for any misstep to be taken which converts this into a raging fire of the virus. Because so far we've done very well. We've been ahead of the curve with the Prime Minister's bold steps right in the beginning and so on. And we have taken this further lockdown period. We need to stay ahead of the curve, because what we cannot afford is a widespread, a raging fire of this virus, which is where the calibration is being done.
Let me ask you then, in conclusion, are you worried that the restrictions at one level, either worried or accepting of the fact that the restrictions in a way prevent business economic activity from truly finding its mojo? Because business doesn't like to function under restriction. When I look at the number of clauses that are there, there will be a feeling that, look, while a small window is being opened, is it enough for us to actually have any sense of positivity?
No, I'm sure there is positivity. In fact, I've heard a number of statements from industry representatives welcoming this opening up. I don't think anybody in the industry, and I've met a large number of people, did expect or even want a full-fledged opening up at this time, because the uncertainty that will hang over their heads like a Damocles sword of the virus, of the spread of the virus, if it becomes community-based, etc., is far too risky, far too dangerous even for them to contemplate. So I think everybody has been appreciative of this calibrated approach, which has tried to strike a balance between opening up economic activity, giving some of our very large sectors large rooms to work, and in labor-intensive sectors as well. And I don't think we need to, we could have, I don't think anybody has seen this as a negative step. And they know that the others will follow. So in that respect, people can now start preparing to go sort of full-fledged to the economic activity in our coming.
Just one more question. A lot of people asked about travel. Keep asking me rail travel, air travel. In fact, when it came to the railways had even taken up online booking, and then eventually the tickets were cancelled. Do you believe that is the final key step to get passenger traffic on air, rail, moving slowly but surely? Is that the next target, you think, on the 3rd of May?
Should be, Rajdeep. But, please remember also that at some point of time, our own service industry, which is the retail trade and the entertainment, etc., they'll also have to be opened up. And, we need to think through those as well, because they have suffered a full revenue loss. But yes, connectivity is important. But remember, please, that today's order says that all freight traffic is now being permitted. So that's the goods train and the trucks, etc., including the dhabas on the roadside, where the trucks can stop. So clearly the government is cognizant of the fact that that connectivity is key, but we can begin with allowing economic connectivity and then shifting to social connectivity in due course. I think that's the sort of approach, a sequenced approach that the government has taken.
Rajiv Kumar, you've given us a sense of what the government's approach is. We appreciate your joining us and giving us a glimpse into what lies ahead. Thank you very much at the top of the news tonight.
Lovely being here.
Let's widen this and ask those who are actually perhaps going to be affected. I'm joined by R. Gadpati, President, Southern India Chamber of Commerce. He runs a leading IT firm, Chairman, Trigen Technologies. Niranjan Hiranandani, founder and MD of Hiranandani Group, one of the biggest construction companies in the country. Dinesh Trivedi, TMC leaders, joining me. I'm also joined by Ashwath Narayan. He is the Karnataka Deputy Chief Minister and also their IT Minister. So we'll find out from him also how this plays out. Dinesh Trivedi, to you first. You're a politician, but you've also spent a lot of time in the travel industry. You heard Rajiv Kumar saying, look, this is a step-by-step graded approach that we are taking. How do you see this approach? Well calibrated, or do you believe that this approach lacks a clear vision, a clear plan? I know you're an opposition leader, so you may be critical.
No, I would at the moment begin by saying that these are extraordinary times. These are difficult times. But having said that, we also have to understand that when I was the junior minister for health, we were faced with H1N1, which was somewhat similar situation. So what did we do? We did not panic. If you go back 2009, and if you see America and all, the same kind of video and everything was there. So the first principle, do not panic, and there is no reason to panic. And I can tell you for certain, H1N1 is here to stay. So would COVID-19 is here to stay. But very soon we are going to get medication.
No, are you saying the original lockdown was a panic reaction and lockdown 2.0 is also a panic reaction?
If you have lockdown without giving time, it was virtually 4 hours. And I don't want to be partisan, but the fact is that Bengal started preparation much early, much early. So I don't want to get into that competition. Yes, it was a panic reaction, like you have given 5 days to lock out partially. Similarly, during the lockdown, if I would have been a railway minister, I would have ensured the problem which you have today of migration, that could have been, with technology, if you have the local mohalla leaders, you have the panchayat police station, getting everybody together and understanding, and is it in phases. If you could have sent aeroplanes to China, to UK, to France to get our people back, I think the migrant laborers have equal right to go back to their home.
So you would resume point-by-point train? Are you telling me, as a former railway minister, you would have resumed point-to-point trains?
Yes, and you could have done it in a phased manner. You could have spoken to them so that there's no stampede, like we saw in the Bombay station. I don't blame any administration, but you should have very well told them that this is what it is. Now that phase is over. So what you do, for heaven's sake, give them food. Today, I heard the Honorable Home Minister said that we have enough food. So we have. But for heaven's sake, give them food. Give the GST dues to the state, because the implementing agency are the states. And I think most of the states are at it and they have done well. The chief ministers have taken leadership. Mamata Banerjee is on the road. So having said that, now this is like a Abhimanyu getting into the Chakravyuh. Now Abhimanyu did not know how to come out of it. Similarly, today's, whatever we got the directives, it means 70% is open. But how are you going to implement this 70%? One of the things talks about that those manufacturing people must give insurance to their employees, medical insurance. Now, they are also short of cash. if the government has not announced packages like America or UK or France or Belgium, starting from 10% to 18% of the GDP. Today, cash flow is a big problem.
I take your point.
Again, having said that, I personally feel you have two problems. Today, it had to be open because your Rabi crop is ready. It has to go to the market. And if the farmers do not get money after selling, they will not have money to sow for the Kharif. And that's very important. If they don't do that, then next year you are looking at starvation. And I'm sure that that stage will not come.
You're making important points. You're making important points.
I don't think the government had any choice.
Sure, you're saying government had no choice, but the government is also stuck a bit like Abhimanyu in a Chakravyuha. And many believe that the way to get out of it is also to incentivize industry. It's not just enough to have coercive steps or even this mild relaxation, but also ensure in some way that there are incentives. Do you believe, Niranjan Hiranandani, there are enough incentives in what the government has done? You're in the construction sector. Government has said workers who are already on construction sites in urban areas can now start their work. Is that enough of an incentive? Do you believe that you need something more to actually kickstart construction activity?
There are two aspects of it, Rajdeep. Number one, we're very happy that some permission has been given on the 20th, and we are hoping that by 2nd of May, when the whole thing opens out, further permissions will come up as they will see the effect of that. But the second point, which is extremely important and which Mr. Trivedi also mentioned about it, I think the fiscal packages also are required to be announced because in most cases, and I represent not only real estate, but in ASSOCHAM, we have 450,000 SMEs who will be actually becoming bankrupt by the middle of next month. So I think what is needed is a fiscal package which really needs to be announced according to the size of our economy. Everyone is talking about a 10% fiscal package that is required, which we are saying is around $200 billion US. But the point is, we need some announcement to happen early because otherwise it's extremely difficult to continue to pay wages as we are talking about across the board. Number two, we also feel that there are many other segments that activity can be done. One, the banking system is not lending any money to the economy. There are 4 lakh crores of rupees lying with the banks, and the credit has been given by the RBI, but it's not flowing. I think somewhere down the line, a credit guarantee needs to be given for additional funding to industry, to business, to every sector of the economy, hotels and other things which are necessary, and a credit guarantee needs to be done on the lines which was given for NBFCs a couple of months ago. Right. This is important. And the third part, which is extremely, extremely important, money has not been paid for income tax refunds, for VAT refunds, for NHI contracts, state government GST and other payments. All these things, if you put together, those alone repayments are 2,20,000 crores. If all this money moves into the economy, I'm sure the kickstart will come up. And if I may be permitted, Rajdeep, I want to make a demand which sounds a little difficult, but I would suggest it that GST should be reduced by 50% for 6 months to kickstart the economy. Otherwise, nobody's going to buy. I think we do need a kickstart of the economy. This can well fit in with the kind of budget that we are talking of, 10% of GDP.
10% of GDP, we've only given a package at the moment which is 0.5% of GDP. So you need a much bigger package. But Niranjan Hiranandani, let me give you a practical problem that even as we are speaking, a fellow member of your industry has just sent me. If they have opened construction sites and those supplies are non-essential, how will supplies reach those sites to ensure work happens? Add to this the interstate challenges that in some states the state boundaries remain sealed. These are practical realities.
No, that's not correct. That is not correct, Rajdeep. It is very, very clear that all transport relating to goods has been opened out through the country.
Including non-essential supplies?
Yes, including all supplies of transport of materials have been permitted from the 20th of this month. And on that day onwards, all materials, construction materials, all other materials will be permitted to be done. And 2 persons, 1 driver and 1 other person will accompany the truck. And even empty trucks will be allowed to ply from the 20th of this month. So that's not a correct figure. This is a misconception which was communicated, but I think the order has made it abundantly clear. And the second part of it, and that order is important, that in the cities also they are permitting construction where it is not a hotspot and the construction workers are already there on the site.
They have to be there on the site. Many of them may have gone to the village. If they are there still on the site.
Yes. So in the cities, but in the rural areas, it's opened out completely. So in the urban areas where there is a possibility of hotspots and other things happening, it is limited for the purposes of where the construction workers are there.
But that includes your city, Mumbai. Sorry to interrupt, that includes Mumbai. So there will be no construction activity in Mumbai as long as it remains a hotspot.
No, Rajdeep, already there are plenty of construction workers because only 10% of the workers have left the city. The rest of the people are still there and they were about to move out as happened in Bandra. And now we will be able to get the work started of those people who are there on the site. I think it's a good beginning. As Rajiv Kumar said, it should be calibrated. So we are supportive. But the fiscal package is something which needs to be announced very quickly.
I take your point.
Because otherwise it's a very difficult thing, especially for SMEs and construction and many of the other trades.
Let me for a moment, therefore, just take a pause and go to my other guest who's joining me at the moment, Ashwath Narayan. Before I come to you, Mr. Ganpati, Ashwath Narayan is Deputy Chief Minister, Karnataka. He's in charge of IT. The IT capital, Bengaluru, Mr. Ashwath Narayan. My immediate question is, how do you expect the IT sector to work effectively when public transport is completely, even under the present conditions of the lockdown, not allowed? How will people easily travel from Bengaluru to the IT city campuses and back?
Rajdeep sir, along with their private vehicle, they'll be allowed to make use of the private vehicle with their own. And the companies are allowed to transport their employees through the private contract buses with the carrying capacity should not be more than 30 to 40% of the existing capacity. If the seats are 50, they should not carry more than 20 people.
But who will
that permitted buses, sir?
But social distancing at the workplace, how will you ensure that? Is that now your responsibility or that of the IT companies after the 20th of April?
In necessity demands such a situation. So far, most of the IT employees have been working from home, and it has been a very successful model, particularly across the world. Bangalore has proved, even in this tough time, in this crisis period, we have been a reliable partner for the entire world in the providing the service, in the service sector and the IT services. We have been a very reliable partner. In this given situation, since we have been facing a crisis at the COVID-19 challenges there, we need to accommodate and we need to be also part of the solution. So we need to be, the IT employees also have to be part of the solution. If not, all of them are going to face the problem. So keeping in this mind, our IT professionals basically are very willing to come forward and accommodate, and they want to adopt all the stringent conditions. Even they have come forward, even advising the government how to go forward, how best the practices should be adopted in all other sectors, in all the public spaces also. The government need to practice, our IT sectors have been insisting on the government and advising all the time to ensure the safety of the people will be given the topmost priority, sir.
But what about Bengaluru city itself? And this could be any city of the country. How will you deal with the fact that the lockdown relaxation does not involve allowing people, free movement of people? No metros, no buses. It isn't easy to function without allowing public transport, surely. Do you concede that or not?
Sir, Bangalore, if you compare in the entire state, Bangalore has been allowed only in very, very limited ways, sir. Very limited activity has been permitted in the city of Bangalore. Most of the manufacturing or the construction has been very limited. Wherever in the construction site, the construction workers, if they are available, if they are staying in the construction site itself,
right,
they've been allowed to do the construction activity. And rest remaining, most of the manufacturing, there have been lot of restriction, particularly in the city of Bangalore, for much of the commercial activity. It is only just limited to few areas, few sectors, there's been permission. Otherwise, in the city of Bangalore, there's been lot of restriction, even in the present guidelines.
So Bangalore and cities will continue to have restriction. That brings me to Mr. Ganpati. Mr. Ganpati, you heard the IT minister, for example, there of Karnataka saying, look, restrictions will have to remain in place in Bangalore. We are opening up slowly. Is slow opening as good as no opening? Or do you believe this has to be done step by step?
Rajdeep, thanks for inviting us over. But let me first wear the hat of President of SICI. See, Tamil Nadu is the MSME engine of India. And the auto sector, even before we got into this, was undergoing some stress. But now I was speaking to a few people before the show, and there is a little bit of excitement amongst the auto sector, most importantly amongst the MSME sector. Some of these component manufacturers have been quite excited by the fact that these auto manufacturers want them to go through with their supplies very quickly because they want to finish the products that are there in the assembly line.
Where's the market? Where's the market, Mr. Ganpati?
No,
where's the demand?
Wait. Let me tell you something. The auto manufacturer wants to complete what is in his final leg of his assembly. He wants a finished product. That the market is for him to find, but here I'm talking about the concerns of the MSME.
Right.
The MSME sector has been asked to supply these components to them. But Chennai, most of the large auto manufacturers are around the Chennai, city of Chennai, and many of these MSME sectors are in the city of Chennai, and which is a hotspot. Now, this is a problem for them. They have the opportunity to get back to business, but and in these 20-25 days, all of them have said that social distancing is a way of life for everybody, and they would automatically be practicing it on the shop floor. And therefore, selectively, sectors must be dealt with kid gloves selectively, and auto sector should be one such sector. Now, that is in as much as the MSME sector is concerned, which is of great concern for us in Tamil Nadu because a huge workforce is deployed. In fact, that sector does the heavy lifting for jobs in this city. Let me come to IT. I'm just annotating what the minister said previously. In the IT sector, primarily, even normally 50% work from home. So this is nothing new. And delivery is happening across companies. No delivery, I don't think any IT company has suffered from this because the bandwidth connectivity is good. They're suffering. They're doing quite well. And most of these IT companies, Rajdeep, have long-term contracts which will only get renewed. Closure deferrals may happen as long as they deliver well. These contracts will get renewed annually. They'll have to goof it up big time to lose these renewals. Otherwise, they are there. But it is the BPM sector, business process management sector, that is deeply hit. This sector calls for low-end skilled people to be employed. They employ in huge numbers. Your NCR has plenty of them. We have, including the World Bank backend, is in Chennai. Let's take, for example, a BPM which is servicing a client like JPM. They actually end up servicing JPM's clients. Now, if they can't serve, JP Morgan Chase can't service their end client, they are now going to be looking at whether to continue with these guys or not. This is where, these are all mission critical delivery. The sector does not need, as I said, high skilled workers, but depend on,
Sir, very quickly, sir,
high network
very quickly at the end of the day,
like
very
but
quickly.
Let me tell you, this is a Y2K moment for the IT companies because America is the mother country for India, for the IT, and they are going to spend big time in the healthcare and life sciences sector as they compress the drug delivery cycle.
You're calling this a Y2K.
Absolutely.
You're calling it a Y2K moment for the IT sector, a possible opportunity.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the service sector, because of consumption, because of demand, is hurting. And I want to come to you, Dinesh Trivedi, for a final word on that. At the end of the day, execution is going to be critical. The state governments, The government of India is going to have to provide incentives, fiscal packages of the kind that Mr. Hiranandani mentioned, but the execution is going to have to be done by the states. How do you see that playing out now?
So, Rajdeep, there are two areas. One area relates to farm, and I think that's very critical because rural India is where a lot of things happen, and this is the critical time. Second is the urban India, and the economy cannot kickstart without demand. You can have supply, but if there are no people to buy cars, where you just rightly said, then we have a big problem in terms of business. Second thing, I was listening to the officials from the health ministry. They said there are 170 hotspots and there are 260 in the waiting. So out of 730 districts, if 170 plus 260 are hotspots, then how are you going to implement what you have just said? And there is no guarantee that the places which are not hotspot today will not get into hotspot. So things are very critical, and the implementing agency is all state governments. So please understand, the regular hospitals today, God forbid if somebody has a heart problem, if somebody has appendicitis, there are no regular doctors for the regular diseases. And do you want to say that those should die? The stigma attached to COVID-19 must go. And government must say everywhere this is a normal thing. Don't matter. Because 80% who do not require hospitalization, and if they are sent, right, the 20% which require hospitalization, they will be denied and you will have more deaths. People who can stay at home in spite of having COVID-19 and can get out of it, so be it. I think somewhere down the line, this panic and this afraid and the stigma of COVID-19 has to go. If somebody has COVID-19, then the entire social media has the photograph of them and the family. And if somebody which says courier company is open, if I want to courier something, if I go to a courier shop, how do I go? Police will stop me. And please understand, we are into NDMA, Section 188, 1860. I just hope that the police, wherever are there, are a little more friendly. And the use of lathis, which we have been seeing, must stop. Today, the police must say, we have a best police force, we have a best bureaucracy. Let the bureaucracy around the country work with a human heart and a human soul. This is a problem we all are going to overcome. There is no doubt about it.
Right.
And this is not a disease that you have COVID-18, you're going to die. No. So these are reassuring words which must come from the top people, whether Chief Minister or the Prime Minister.
Point taken.
Or whoever. No panic. This will overcome for sure, but difficulty will be in overcoming the economy.
Okay, let's leave it there. Clearly, we've got varying views, edge of optimism from industry, which is reassuring, but also a note of caution. Cautious optimism is the only way you can deal with the future in tough times like this. Thank you all very much for joining me to give us a sense of what this relaxation and new guidelines would really mean on the ground.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.